Welcome everyone to the beginning of the 2021 NUSHU Thought Leader Series. We started this series in March of last year as a response to the need we saw for people to have inspiring, uplifting, and supportive information during a really challenging time. The calendar has flipped to a new year, 2021, but things are still tough, and we are committed to keeping these talks going and keeping them free and open to the public. If you want to know about all of these talks, follow us on Instagram at NUSHU to make sure that you don't miss out on any of them. For those of you who are new here, I'm Vanessa Cornell, the founder of NUSHU. Our mission at NUSHU is to bring people together in true community. We do this through this Thought Leader series, through NUSHU Group, which is a facilitated space with a small group of people, where you get to share what is in your heart and on your mind, and you are received without judgment, without fixing, and with love and compassion. If you are interested in exploring NUSHU Group, we have our dates up on our website on nushu.com. We also offer community live coaching with my dear friend, Ali Bogard, who's also, I know, a friend of Robin's. The last thing we offer are trainings to help people learn how to hold this space of NUSHU Group. We are excited that we are going to be opening applications in a couple of weeks for the spring cohort. Last time we sold out in about 2 weeks. So if you have any interest, please add your name to the waitlist on our website to get first access once we open the applications in a few weeks. As I mentioned, all of this can be found on our website on nushu.com. And if you have any questions at all, you can just email info@nushu.com. Okay, so now that we've had a chance for people to arrive and settle, I am so excited to be kicking off the new year with Dr. Robin Berzin on the Thought Leader series today. Welcome, Robin. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. I'm thrilled to kick off this new year with you and everyone joining.
Great. So let me just tell some of you, if you're not familiar with Robin, a little bit about her. She is the founder and CEO of Parsley Health, the nation's largest holistic medical service. She founded Parsley Health to address the rising tide of chronic disease in America through personalized, holistic medicine that puts food, lifestyle, and proactive diagnostic testing on the prescription pad next to medications. Parsley is available nationwide via telemedicine and has beautiful centers for in-person care in New York and LA. Robin attended medical school at Columbia University and trained in internal medicine at Mount Sinai Hospital in New York. She is recognized as one of the 100 most innovative women in business by Inc. magazine, has been praised by Fast Company for founding one of the world's most innovative companies, and is here today to discuss with us how to achieve health in the new year by asking not just what we are struggling with, but why. Thank you, Robin, first of all, for creating this new type of space in medicine. And I wonder if you can just start by telling us why you felt the need to create this kind of a space and how it's different than what you might be seeing with your regular GP or traditional medical care that you've seen in the past.
Yeah. If I take myself back, which now feels like an eon ago, but I guess wasn't everything, right? Like 2 weeks ago feels like an eon ago for all of us, I think, at this point, but time is very plastic if this period of time has taught us anything. But I was in my residency training at Sinai in the city, and I just remember in the outpatient clinics, primary care clinic, 15-minute visits, very fast visits, and kind of racing through what's your chief complaint, what medications are you on, and spending a couple minutes at the end of each of those 15-minute blocks, printing out pages and pages of prescriptions. And in those days, we printed them out. No longer is the case, but also not that long ago, scarily enough. And I would frantically sign like 4 prescriptions per page and hand someone this stack, right? And it was all for high blood sugar and high blood pressure and heart disease and depression and pain and autoimmune conditions and hormone imbalances and gastrointestinal issues and migraine headaches and all of the things that everybody is dealing with and living their lives. And I just would look at these stacks of prescriptions and think, this isn't getting anyone anywhere. This isn't addressing the root of the problem. The way that we're eating, the way that we're moving, the way that we're managing stress is largely driving these conditions. And these medications will kind of keep them in check and hopefully keep you out of the hospital, but they're not going to solve the problem unless we take a more holistic approach. And to be honest, I was pretty frustrated. Like, it was frustrating to have that perspective in my medical training because, Sinai and Columbia are both amazing places. I learned a lot. I'm really grateful for that foundational education, but we don't operate that way in medicine. And yet it's so clear, the data is so clear that that's what we need, that I felt compelled to see if there was a way to take a more holistic, more personalized, more high touch approach to medicine that would help people resolve some of these chronic illnesses where possible and help them feel better. I thought, could I make that more accessible to more people? Because I saw that it existed, but it kind of wasn't that accessible at the time.
Yeah, I mean, that makes so much sense to me. And it feels so obvious. And I think it's so beautiful that you figured out a way to do that, to create something that's, viable, where you can have a conversation with someone and ask your questions, and they'll take the time to really answer your questions. So I want to talk about a couple of different things that I think might be on people's minds. And I would be remiss to not mention something that I've seen a lot when I sit with people in group in the last, year or 9 months, which is that so many people are saying, I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted during this time. I'm not even doing anything, and I'm tired, and I don't have the motivation. And I think there's a lot of emotional component in that. But what I would love to know from you, Robin, is what are you seeing? Because the last 9 months are really unprecedented, not just in terms of people becoming ill, but just generally, because I know that your approach is not just about, what is the virus in your body, what is the disease in your body, but it incorporates so many other things that are essential to supporting health. So I would just love your perspective on what you've seen and what advice you give to people generally to support themselves during such a challenging time.
Yeah, I mean, it is really unprecedented, as you said. And I always remark that even before COVID, we always had, we would really uncover very high rates of depression and anxiety in our patient population. People would come to us for their bloating or their headaches or their, thyroid issue or trouble getting pregnant, all the things that we deal with day in and day out. And then we would talk to them because in our medicine, mind and body are not separate, right? That's an arbitrary distinction in our medical system. It's not actually a biological distinction. The mind and the body and the spirit are one. And if you need to understand someone, you have to look at all of them together in our view. We are already seeing a lot of that. And then I think what we added to that in this time period was, and has been and is, this sort of relentless sense of anxiety and pressure, right? We're in the crucible and we're still in it. We've turned the page of the year, which feels broadened, right? You feel the spaciousness a little bit. I think I feel it personally.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, we're in it, and we don't have our same social outlets. We aren't getting out and about and just having the natural disruptions in our day. We're sitting, before this, we were sitting on your butt 11 hours a day on average. Now that's even more so. We're constantly plugged into screens. And there's this sense of existential threat. There's social unrest. There's political, upheaval of various sorts. And we're sort of constantly bombarded with emergency. And then you add to that your own internal motor, which we all have, of this constant sense of emergency. My email is an emergency. My job is an emergency. My dental visit for my son yesterday that I've got to get to at 5 p.m., is an emergency, like whatever it is. And what we forget sometimes is that has very real physical, biological repercussions in the body. The constant chronic stress, the constantly living in fight or flight mode or sympathetic overdrive, that's our sympathetic nervous system, makes us awash in neurotransmitters and hormones, which are designed to help us respond to stress, but when turned on all the time, deplete our immunity, raise our blood sugar, cause us to gain weight, disrupt our sleep, disrupt our digestion, um, and and really kind of deplete all of the sort of natural functioning of the body. And so again, mind and body are not separate. We've all been in this chronic mode now for a long time. And so my message to our members and patients I see and everyone here is, what got you here won't get you there. And so whatever the patterns that you were in prior to all of this that maybe served you at that time or worked for like well enough, might have sort of in survival mode carried you through the early part of this time. But what we saw by the end of the end of the year was just unbelievable levels of exhaustion and burnout, because to your point of adaptability, people hadn't actually adapted the way they do things. And so I'm inviting everyone to start this year, and we can get into specifics of what, but we have to turn the page and we have to start living our lives differently day to day in order to not just sort of continue to survive, but to thrive in this environment.
That's so on the mark. What has served you in the past might not serve you now. So
Yeah.
I'd love a couple of examples, and maybe you can share from your own experience some examples of what you have done. I know you have a new baby, so that disrupts everything.
Oh yeah.
But just, in what areas is it the way we eat, the way we sleep, the way we work, the way we organize our space? What are some specific areas that people can really examine to say, is this working for me anymore? Is the way I've done it in the past working right now?
Yeah. So a few things that I frankly have really had to implement. And I went through my Google Calendar for this year and I just like took a machete to it. And I was just like, that is not happening. So I have a meditation block from 9 a.m. to 9:20 every single morning.
Mm.
I cannot roll out of beds to walk dogs, to get the kids up, to get my son to school, to get the baby with the nanny, to get straight into this computer. I cannot start my day like that.
Yeah.
And as mothers, as business people, as partners, if we are ragged, they are ragged. And that's been a really big learning for me. Like if you're a leader, and all of us are leaders in our lives in some aspect, or if not multiple aspects of our lives, if you are afraid, they are afraid. And so self-care isn't like this floofy, nice to have thing. It's an investment in your health, and it's an investment in the people around you who depend on you and your guidance in whatever format that might look like. So that means your day has to be constructed to give you fuel. In Ayurvedic medicine, they call it ohas, which is like your life force, your juices, right? And if you're sapped, then again, everything around you, everything that's happening in your business, in your life, in your family, in your relationships is going to feel sapped too. So I'm layering in 20-minute meditation every single day, start my day really hard, 9 a.m. There's a lot of forces that want me to start doing something else, but I have to bring myself into an energetic place that sets me up for success for the day. The next is lunch breaks, pee breaks, walk breaks throughout the day, times when I am stepping up and getting away from my devices so that I can see and have a different perspective. The third, and this for me as a new mom was like really or a second time new mom, I guess, was like the kicker is exercise. Like I didn't sort of cotton on right away. Like, yeah, I could work from home and like in my bedroom, like a little bit, but I miss my yoga classes. I did an online yoga class last night at like 8 p.m. because I'm in a new mode and I'm moving every single day, and it's made a huge difference in my psyche. But the teacher who is a teacher I know and from life prior, although I haven't seen in a year, she said like, "Oh, I miss you all," and I like literally started crying because I was like, I miss everyone too. I'm like in my bedroom watching this yoga class crying. But those community touch points were really important, and for some of us, not having that has been a demotivator to move. But you have to disrupt your day and start to move. And so I've blocked out in my calendar yoga exercise breaks throughout my week that I cannot mow over, right? It's always the first thing to go. Oh, that call went too long. Oh, that thing happened. Oh, my kid is yelling, whatever the thing is, like you can't allow it to be mowed over. You have to take it as seriously as you take your most important meeting of the week.
Yeah.
So those are a few of them.
Well, I really appreciate your perspective there, because I think sometimes what we need is to just give ourselves permission to honor and value that self-care. I mean, self-care is a word that's been thrown around, and still it's really hard, particularly for women, to honor it. And so if you're listening, Robin has 2 young children and a thriving business, and she is making her time. One of the things that I sort of love about this time is that it's almost like all the rules have gone out the window. There are like no rules anymore. So like, let's take advantage of that. I have something with my kids where I sometimes say to them when they've gotten into a bad pattern, new rule, right? Like whatever you thought was happening before, like
Yeah.
new rule. And so I've taken that into my life where I'm like, I know I always did this, and I know I always answered my emails right away, and I know I always did this and I always did that, but like new rule. Because there are
And
no
we have
rules
to,
anymore.
there are no rules, and we have to seize that, right? Like
Yeah.
no one's going to hand us that. We have to say, hey, and also remind ourselves and realize, right, that I think is something that we take for granted, but which is a fact of our current modern reality, which is that we are set up for sickness. We are a set up for sickness. The human body was not designed to sit all day, to eat 150 pounds of refined sugar a year, to um, not to live on primarily omega-6 refined vegetable oils as opposed to omega-3 fats, which reduce neuroinflammation and help us fight depression. Exercise, movement as medicine. Exercise goes head to head with most antidepressants, and has been shown in many cohorts of people to be as effective, or if not more effective, as most of the medications out there. But our doctors are not prescribing it either instead of or alongside. It's like this floofy thing. Oh, let's not take that seriously. But the data is very clear.
Yeah.
And so if you sort of say, well, I'm just going to barrel through my day and let the surrounding milieu just sort of dictate how I live, you will get sick. That is for sure. And so now this is, I think, a great opportunity to make your own rules and think through like, hey, I've got this situation. Like, how do I shift it so that it actually works for me?
Yeah. And let's talk about specifically burnout, and something I've heard a lot, which is adrenal fatigue. And maybe you can tell us a little bit more what that means. I just sort of say the phrase without understanding it fully.
Yeah.
But to me, it seems that there are so many forces telling us to do more,
Mhm.
achieve more, produce more, consume more. Even at the beginning of COVID, it felt like there was so much content, and we added to this, we created content, but it was almost like I felt guilty for not consuming all the stuff that was out there. And so, when you say we're set up for sickness, to me, it feels in that particular area of more, faster, higher, better, always more, always more, always more. That's a strong message that we're getting, and it's difficult sometimes to counteract that.
Yeah. It's so hard to turn off. And, m- media, social media is addictive, right? Our devices are addictive. They're neurologically addictive. They are designed to be such. So I really hope people can get past this like guilt factor. Oh, I can't turn off my phone at night. Oh, I can't stop scrolling the news. All of that technology and software is designed to keep you going, right? So it means that you have to set yourself up in a different pattern in order to avoid burnout. Because just as we're set up for sickness, I think we're a bit of a setup for burnout, especially in this moment where, again, we don't have those normal sort of natural disruptions to our patterns. Go out for lunch, go to a dinner, walk, take even your commute on the train or your car or whatever would have been a time when you were somewhat unreachable.
Mm.
Now, if I do a yoga class like last night, I'm getting text messages, my dog's barking, my kid's screaming, my husband has a question. You really have to create this sort of cocoon to create that silence. And so burnout's a real thing. The World Health Organization declared it a real medical condition a couple years ago. It's rampant in our workforce, primarily because of this always on mode of technology that we're in, Slack and email and text and everything else. And then when it comes to adrenal fatigue is a real medical condition. You can measure it through testing. I do with my patients, we at Parsley offer testing, sometimes saliva, sometimes urine testing to address adrenal function. But when I say adrenal fatigue is a medical condition, it's not so much a disease as it is a functional condition.
Mm.
And what I mean by that is your adrenals, which are two little glands that sit on top of your kidneys that pump out a bunch of critical hormones, including cortisol, your big stress hormone, and norepinephrine, your kind of fight or flight neurotransmitter. That's what they do. Your adrenals are hooked up to your brain, and your brain is actually the one telling the adrenals what to do. And so when we see adrenal fatigue, there's a couple variants of it that we'll see on the testing, but we'll see people who are either wired and tired, meaning that they're exhausted, but they're just up. And that's usually because their brain is telling their cortisol to pump high, 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 and it's high all day, and it shouldn't be. Cortisol should start high in the morning, come down nicely over the course of the day, be low at night so you can go to sleep. So we'll see it high, high, high. People can't sleep. They have blood sugar issues. They have abdominal weight gain. That's one variant of it. Another variant is we see it low, low, low all day long, which is basically your adrenals have heard from your brain, run from that lion, day in and day out for so long that they kind of stop listening.
Mm.
And your normal high in the morning, low at night pattern has just gotten to what I call the flat line. And so we can look at this on testing. And when we look at rehabilitating it or fixing it, it can be healed. I don't use the word cured because again, it's not a disease, but it's a functional condition that we live our way into. The way that we heal it over time is through proper sleep, taking time out to disconnect every day. I recommend everyone takes at least 1 hour per day. You're going to think I'm crazy, but 1 full hour per day where you are in a relaxed state. That means a meditation, a walk, a light yoga class, cooking, but 1 hour a day for your body to be out of fight or flight mode and into what we call rest, digest, relax, and heal mode, your parasympathetic dominant. You can do legs up the wall and just do belly breathing, but you do something for a period of time every day because that is the only time that your body actually gets a chance to reboot and heal. And then it's all about cleaning up your diet, drinking enough water, eating enough protein, fiber, greens, healthy fats. Sometimes getting away from the super intense cardio. I just tried Peloton for the first time at my parents' house over Christmas. I loved it, but it's also very much that like more of that pressure to just go, 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 right? It's like this, you can sort of feel it. And so we also need movement in our lives that allows us to restore and recharge. And so those are some of the things that we'll prescribe along with adaptogenic herbal supplements and other types of nutrients and lifestyle practices to help the body heal from adrenal fatigue. You don't have to have adrenal fatigue to have burnout though. And that I think is very much something that, everyone is experiencing.
Yeah. That's so interesting. And I want to make sure we touch on a couple of things that might be coming up for people so that they know how to sort of manage their next steps. So I'm not 20 anymore. I'm 43. I've had 5 kids. And I used to joke with my OBGYN who used to say to me, when you turn 50, you can injure yourself sleeping at night. Like all of a sudden things just start to happen to your body that didn't happen when you were 20. And so I wonder if you could talk about, what are the things that start to happen? What are the issues that you have a lot of people come to you with? I'm sure there's a broad range of things that people struggle with, but I'm sure burnout and adrenal fatigue is one big bucket. But the other bucket I wanted to talk about is just hormonal changes, perimenopause. How can, and I apologize to those of you who are not, 40 something women or 50 something women, but I happen to be, and I have the mic, so I'm asking the question. What should I be looking out for, and how should I be supporting myself, getting the resources I need, doing what I need to do to support my health as, I look towards hormonal changes and I think there are a lot of symptoms maybe of perimenopause that people just don't know about because it's not really spoken about so much, which is surprising to me.
Yeah, it's a great point. I do a lot of hormone work at all pre-fertility, fertility, PMS, PCOS, menopause, like andropause, everything in between, all the things. And the first thing I recommend doing, a lot of people don't know their baseline. They don't know where they stand. They haven't had comprehensive hormone testing. That's not just your sex hormones, progesterone and estrogen and testosterone, by the way, which get blamed for a lot of stuff that are actually not the problem oftentimes. It'll be your thyroid hormones, your adrenal hormones, your inflammation levels, your cardiovascular health, your nutrient levels, your fatty acids. I can't tell you, just the average person has no idea. Probably most of you are listening to me right now and you're hearing everything I just said and you're probably like, huh? Which is totally normal, not your fault. I spent a long time in medical training to know what these things are, but like, we'll have someone who's an expert cut our hair, and we'll have someone who's an expert like show us what flowers to plant, because like I couldn't figure that out. I'm not a green thumb. Like, we will bring in experts into our lives all the time, but then we don't get like expertise when it comes to our health. We do a Google search and read a blog post. And it's like, this vehicle is the only thing that you will have for life. Do you even know where it stands? And these are common blood tests that any doctor can order. And yet in our medical community, there's not a lot of proactive testing. There's a lot of wait till the wheels fall off the wagon, pronounce that the wheel is on the ground. Thank you, I saw that. And then, give you something to deal with it. And there's so much you can do proactively. So if you're a woman in your late 30s or early 40s or late 40s, early 50s, and you're not sure if you're in perimenopause, now is a great time to get all of your hormones tested, not just your sex hormones, and to look at these other factors that can be contributing. 1 in 5 women in her lifetime will be diagnosed with a thyroid issue. Low thyroid function can cause depression, constipation, muscle pain, joint pain, weight gain. And I can't tell you how many women, especially in their 30s and 40s, will say, I have a problem with my hormones, or I'm in perimenopause, or my cycle's off. It's not their sex hormones, it's their thyroid, but no one ever checked it. I ran into an old friend of mine at the pediatric dentist last night, actually, and she said, her thyroid had been up and down, and she had actually had COVID last spring. And she's like, I'm having sometimes these flares of like muscle pain or joint pain, and I'm worried that it's like long haul COVID. And then she mentioned her thyroid, because these are the kinds of conversations I have in the waiting room at the pediatric dental office. And I'm like, I don't think that's long haul COVID, honey. I think it's your thyroid, and you need to get someone to take care of it. And I asked her, had someone done her antibodies? Did she have the autoimmune kind of thyroid disorder or the regular kind? And she didn't know. So obviously I'm bringing her into the parsley, but like, just knowing your data is the number one thing that you can just start with to say, where am I? Because that will serve you. Maybe it'll say everything's great. And that will help you know, oh, you know what? My levels are actually in a really good place. I really need to focus on sleep, or I really need to focus on movement, versus oh wow, we've really caught something that's off. And women especially often get dismissed in healthcare settings. Their symptoms aren't real, and they get told, it's in your head, it's depression. I can't tell you how many people have been put on Zoloft and other SSRIs who actually had a thyroid issue and not depression at all. And that's fine, those drugs are fine, but if that's not treating the why, back to asking why, if that's not treating the root cause of your problem, it's not the right solution for you. And most importantly, it won't work that well because it's not addressing the real issue, right? So if you're in a state where you have questions about your hormones shifting, or you feel like something's off, or you, just feel like something's changing and you're not sure, like, I think a lot of us are scared to like investigate because we don't want there to be something wrong. But the earlier you kind of get a handle on where your levels are, that's like your most proactive self-care move, to be like, this is where I'm at. I'm good. I know I have this issue. And oftentimes, it's not a death sentence. It's hey, we have this little thing that's off. Let's help you improve it.
Right. So would you recommend for people, even if they're feeling just fine and healthy, to get their levels checked?
Everyone. Every single person, starting in my view at the age of 20, 25, should be once a year looking at their blood sugar and fasting insulin levels. Blood sugar and metabolism issues are starting in your 20s. 30% of people in America in their 30s are obese, which means they have metabolic syndrome, right? It's not a value judgment of obesity. This carries with it a number of blood sugar issues that then, if your blood sugar is high, then your insulin is high. If your insulin's high, then your testosterone goes up. Testosterone gets converted into estrogen. Now we have the origins of PCOS, PMS, irregular periods, heavy bleeding, endometriosis, infertility, impaired fertility. And these are all things that people are just living with instead of addressing early. So I recommend baseline labs looking at heart health, blood sugar, nutrient levels, like vitamin D, iron, your B vitamins, looking at your hormones, your sex hormones, your thyroid hormones every single year in adulthood. And that's, sort of part and parcel of what we do. There's like no downside.
So let's shift gears a little bit because I think everyone's very focused on their immune systems and trying to make sure that our immune systems are as capable as they can possibly be. Excuse me. What are the most important things to focus on when it comes to just giving your immune system the best possible chance of being as strong as it can be?
Yeah. Couple things. First of all, get your vitamin D level tested. The majority of people are deficient. The data on vitamin D levels and COVID is actually really compelling. We sent vitamin D to every single person in our company across the country this year because I wanted to make sure that no one working for Parsley remotely or in person was vitamin D deficient. It's that critical. It's also really important for bones, for even mood. So taking your vitamin D3 and also getting your levels tested, number one. Two, what we're putting in our mouths every day, lots of sugar and refined carbohydrates and omega-6 vegetable oils all deplete your immune system's ability to function. So a healthy diet is actually what's full of plants and greens and whole fruits and vegetables and healthy fats from, seafood. Americans really don't eat enough seafood. We eat a lot of land creatures. And as a result, we don't get really anywhere close to the amount of omega-3 fatty acids, which are critical for immune and brain health. And heart health. So like eating your way to a healthy immune system is critical. Moving, again, the data on exercise and strong lean muscle mass. I have these I think they're called like Tom Brady bands or something. They're super cheesy. They're like $20, but you can get them from they don't have to come from Tom Brady, but I think of him, every time I stretch with one of these bands. But it's resistance training I do at home. I have medicine balls, which are like those weighted basketballs. I got them on Amazon. Kettlebells, TRX, like stuff that you can do at home, but building lean muscle mass, really good for your immune system. And then stress, right? Again, if you're in fight or flight mode all day long, your immune system has a harder time. So these are the basics of how do you build a resilient body. And I think, when I see what's happening across our country, we've just so deprioritized health literacy, deprioritized public health, deprioritized access to healthcare, that it's become this massive privilege to be able to build health resilience. And yet it's something that, doesn't mean you won't get COVID, doesn't mean you necessarily won't get very sick from it, but it'll massively improve your odds, as well as help you prevent, the many chronic illnesses that we all nowadays commonly suffer from.
Yeah. So I wanted to take a moment to invite people in the audience to ask your questions of Robin. And I would encourage you to put them in the Q&A box, not in the chat, because sometimes they can get a little lost in there. And if you can keep your questions brief and broad, that would be amazing. If you have very specific questions, I would encourage you to make an appointment at Parsley for a consultation. But it would be great to have questions that are broad enough that they could apply to a number of people. So we would love to hear your questions, and we will answer as many as we can. But as those come in,
I will just say, if you have a sort of like specific question, I can also take that and make it applicable to everyone. Because
Cool.
I won't diagnose you over Zoom here, but unless this is not official medical advice, blah blah blah. But oftentimes our questions about our health are everyone's questions too. So no question for me is like, at least from my perspective, is too personal or too weird or gross or like anything that I could be helpful with. For everyone listening, this is your time.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for that, Robin. Thank you for saying that. So they're coming in, and the first question is perfect. Wondering what a first visit at Parsley looks like.
Yeah. You sign up online, and actually, your first visit with us is actually giving us your health history. And we ask questions in a way that no other doctor does. And I always say that's your first visit before you meet any of us, because it's this really beautiful moment where we ask you what you're eating and what your relationships are like and what your stress levels are like and what your childhood was like. And if you have meaning and purpose in your life. And I think somebody said, I felt more seen than by the Parsley intake forms than by like, you know, any of my friends or somebody posted something like that. But the story of your health is the story of your life. And so if we don't know the story of you, then we can't get to the why. And we need to know where you've been to be able to help you set and guide you to where you're going. So that's actually how it starts. So intimidation free, you sign up and you kind of go through this intake process with us. And then your first visit, we have 2 memberships. So one starts with a visit with a health coach. The other one starts with a visit with the doctor. In either case, you get to the doctor very soon. So both of them involve medical care with our physicians. Everything's online. You can, if this is a New York or LA audience, we are doing in-person visits in New York and LA. So if you sign up for our annual membership, you can see us in person if you choose. In the future, if you want to come in, you can, by the way, but we have patients nationwide. And that first visit with one of our providers is online, just like this. So you get to be in your own home, wearing whatever you want to wear. No, we don't wear white coats. And it's a conversation about understanding again where you've come from. And there's only so much we can glean from a form. So understanding, like, getting the nuance there, what medications you're taking, how you're feeling, what your goals are. And then we construct a personalized plan. And our plans always address nutrition first, because food is medicine. We address medications, we address supplements, we address movement and relaxation, meditation, lifestyle change. And then if you need things like referrals to specialists and so forth, we can do that too. And so when I think about like what working with us is like, it's really an ongoing conversation. You might start with a coach or start with a doctor, and then either way, you're seeing a health coach, you're seeing a doctor, you're messaging with us online, you're seeing a coach, you're seeing a doctor, you're messaging online, you're getting tests, you're seeing your doctor, you're seeing your coach. And it's an ongoing relationship, and we're there for you 365 days a year. And why that matters is because your health is dynamic. Your health at this moment is in process of changing. Next week, you might not feel well. The month after that, you might suddenly feel like you have a hormone issue and need a different test that's totally unrelated to the thing that you came in for, right? But we work to kind of unravel the onion to get to know you over time, to do testing, to prescribe protocols. Again, we do prescribe medications as necessary, and to help you work your way towards whatever your goals would be. And they could be to resolve a digestive issue, or get rid of your high cholesterol, or they could enter your migraines, or they could be something more like, I just really want to understand my body better, or I want more energy, right? So there's no like right or wrong thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I so appreciate the intake form. I know that when I see a doctor, I know immediately how it's going to go from the intake form. It's like, what do they care about? And what do they not care about? What's
Right.
distinctly absent from what they're asking? So
Yeah,
I appreciate that part.
it's true.
Yeah. A quick question on low thyroid issues. How do you treat thyroid issues?
So low thyroid function, super common. There is a disease called Graves' disease where the thyroid is hyperactive. That's happens. We treat that too, but extremely rare. Much more rare than low function. So I'm going to address that mainly. Low thyroid function can happen for a variety of reasons. Our thyroid can stop producing enough thyroid hormone. And the thyroid's a little butterfly-shaped gland right here. It produces something called thyroid hormone, and that hormone actually talks to every cell in your body, and it's like the foot on the gas of your metabolism. It's an essential function. If you have low thyroid function, like I said, you could feel tired, you could feel depressed, you could be gaining weight and just like feel like nothing you do is working to get it off. You could have constipation or digestive issues, dry skin, muscle cramps, and aches that come and go. Some people mistake it for Lyme disease, other things. So those are all symptoms, classic hallmark symptoms of thyroid, highly common in women, much more common in women than men. And to treat it, we look at the why. So first we'll do testing, and most doctors unfortunately do a very basic test of thyroid, and we go a lot more in depth with our testing for everybody. So we're looking at all the thyroid hormones because there's a few of them, and we're looking for, do you have an autoimmune condition where your body has mistaken the thyroid tissue for an invader and is attacking it? Or do you have just low thyroid function, which can come from low nutrient levels, zinc, iron, vitamin D, magnesium, selenium, iodine? It can come from chronic, really bad stress. It can come from overexposure, believe it or not, to a lot of the chemicals in like toxic personal care products are hormone mimickers, and it can disrupt the thyroid. It can come from high levels of mercury, which people get from eating like a lot of tuna and stuff. So there's a whole bunch of reasons it can be low. Sometimes it's low and we can't quite figure out why. But if it's autoimmune or non-autoimmune, we want to know that first. And then we use a number of therapies, which can range from supporting your nutrient base, helping you lower inflammation in your body, helping you manage stress, getting toxins out of your body if that's relevant to you. And then sometimes medication. And it's not always possible to treat thyroid issues without medication. I have a patient I'm seeing tomorrow morning who, when I first started working with her, she had low thyroid function from a combination of chronic stress and some nutrient issues. And we addressed all of those. And actually, her thyroid got better. And now she has another issue she's coming in for. But then other people, it is what it is. And then we prescribe thyroid hormone replacement to help people feel better. And then that usually needs to be managed and monitored over time.
Yeah. Yeah. So lots of good questions. It's hard to pick. I'm going to go in order.
Okay.
Quickly, your stance on psychedelics and mental health. I know they're getting a lot of attention.
Ooh, I'm so excited about them.
Yeah.
I think we've had a really narrow set of tools in our tool basket when it comes to mental health for too long. And so the data is early. And, I think psilocybin, NDMA have really big promise. Ketamine is valuable for, like, it seems like very specific, like major depressive disorder, really doesn't do it. None of these things, I just want to say, including antidepressants, whether it's Prozac or Zoloft or psychedelics, you have to remember the drug is never going to do it on its own.
Yeah.
You have to take a holistic approach. You have to bring in your diet and lower neuroinflammation with what you're eating, because neuroinflammation, because of too much sugar, too many omega-6s, that can ultimately drive depression, and anxiety and fatigue and brain fog. And so you got to look at everything. Exercise is critical. We can't get away with not moving. So you got to look at it holistically. But I do think that psychedelics have some really interesting promise. Ketamine, very specific. Psilocybin and MDMA coming. And I'm just excited to see us broaden our toolkit. I think Prozac and Zoloft and SSRIs are awesome tools, but just let's add to them and have more. I'll note that I do not prescribe psychedelic medicine, but I've researched it, and I work with sometimes outside psychiatrists who do.
Great. Another one that I think we could spend an entire hour on, but the very basics about maintaining healthy gut health.
Who lives and who dies in your...
Quickly, Robin, summarize gut health.
Gut health is like a 10-hour course. Actually, I don't know if Courtney or Jen are here. I'm like, we actually have a course on gut health somewhere. Parsley's newsletter and blog, by the way, we send out a lot of doctor-authored articles and things like on these exact topics. But nonetheless, for me, what gut health really comes down to is, are you drinking enough water? I sure as hell don't. So that's like an easy one. Microbiome, who lives and who dies in your gut, comes way down much more to what you're eating every day than a probiotic. So probiotics are great assist tools and can help shape the microbes, but lots of plants, you're going to hear me saying the same things over and over again. Lots of plants, getting out the refined sugars and refined carbs, critical. And then a lot of people have food allergies and food sensitivities. And something I recommend every single person do, no matter who you are, is at least a 3-week, ideally 30-day, but at least give me 21 days of a basic elimination diet. At Parsley, we call it our plant-based paleo core eating plan, gluten-free and dairy-free, no refined carbs, refined sugars. And the reason is wheat and dairy are either allergens or create intolerances in a lot of people. And you would be amazed at the stuff that clears up for people, that when they eliminate those foods, and you have to do it consistently. I'll hear a lot of people say, oh yeah, I cut out dairy, and they're like, for 3 days. Cheese is my life raft. What do you want from me? And I'll be like, well, 3 days isn't really going to do it if it's causing your eczema or your acne or your psoriasis or your chronic bloating or whatever. So you got to do it for 3 weeks and do your best. And it can be really illustrative. By the way, dairy and wheat, they're not bad foods. It's not about bad foods, good foods. It's just whether your body thrives with these foods or not. And the reality is a lot of people don't.
Yeah. Another one we could spend hours on. If you have had your hormones checked and it shows that you are in menopause, what can you do to help with symptoms, hot flashes, mood, etc.?
So if you're perimenopause, which is when your brain is telling your ovaries to fire, and sometimes your ovaries like, cool, yeah. Then other days they're like, whatever, man. That is a time when hormones are fluctuating quite a bit. And what we do in that time period, I just want to be clear with everyone, is a little bit different than how we treat postmenopause, meaning your LH and FSH are high, you're clearly in menopause, you're not cycling anymore. Those two things are different. So to take full menopause, because I think that's what the question is about, I'll take that for the purpose of this conversation. There's a few things we can do. We do prescribe hormone replacement therapy for the right candidates, but we like to do a lot before we get to that, because being on hormones long term, if we can avoid it, we like to avoid it. But it can also be a great, really powerful tool, and I'm very comfortable with it. We can use different adaptogenic herbs. So there's certain types of plant-based medicines that can actually really help with hot flashes, and also vaginal dryness, and help the body metabolize estrogen better. Nutrient-based, what you're eating, as well as through supplementation, can really help. Getting your sleep cycle supported can actually really help some of your menopausal symptoms. Sometimes we'll do targeted hormonal therapies, like I love a vaginal DHEA suppository, or sometimes estriol for vaginal dryness, if we don't want to be on like systemic hormones, but we just need like a little something targeted for a particular symptom. So the answer is it depends, but the fact is that sleep, exercise, and food, along with some very specific supplements for that time of life, can be really effective. And what I would ask is, please don't go to like Whole Foods or GNC or Erewhon or whatever. And like, I literally saw, I think it was a few years ago, this woman in Erewhon, I think in LA, talking to like the person who worked there, being like, my hormones are crazy. And this guy was like, I think you should take this one. And I was like, oh my God, you have no idea what you're doing. Like, don't F with this, please. And also, my usual spiel, off the shelf grocery store supplements, even at places that are health foods places, are not the same thing as professional grade supplements. You don't know what you're getting. You don't know what the active ingredients are. They often don't work and aren't what they say they are. And so just try to get your supplements from like a licensed provider, ideally.
Okay. Awesome. We have so many questions, so we're going to do a little bit of a speed round.
Okay.
Melatonin.
Great for jet lag and shift work and resetting a supplement, in certain high doses for post breast cancer. Very specific use case, we'll use it. Not my first go-to for sleep issues, though. I'm usually asking, why are you not sleeping?
Yeah. Someone who has a relative far away with COVID, what food, supplements, other things to do to help while fighting the disease?
Oof. I don't think I can speed round that, but
don't speed round that. That's an important.
Vitamin D3, get all of the refined sugars out of their diet. Omega-3 fatty acids from fish oil, not algae or plant-based, but the real deal, super important. And we have a whole COVID protocol for prevention, treating when you're active, but you're moderately symptomatic. And then again, our protocol changes pretty dramatically if somebody's really sick and we're trying to keep them out of the hospital. And so that's just not something I feel comfortable like rattling off, because I don't know which situation your person is in.
Yeah. And do you have resources on your website?
Yes.
Or is that something that's really, in consultation with a healthcare provider?
I mean, again, we're taking care of people nationwide with COVID and we're really tailoring it. I mean, if somebody's really sick, we're prescribing steroids and other things that are out of scope for this conversation. But for, mild to moderate, they're recovering at home. We do have information. We have a whole guide to COVID-19. And there are a number of supplements people can take along with their like general how they're eating. Sorry, my dogs are loud. That can be helpful to helping the body fight it. And the goal is right to stay home. Make sure they got an oxygen saturation monitor. You can buy them super cheap. You see oxygen saturation going down below like 92 to 90% consistently. You want to make sure they're going to the ER and they're getting seen.
That's good advice. The next hub for Parsley, do you have plans to expand?
Oof. We are growing so dramatically right now online nationwide that we are really committed to our telehealth. That's for the moment. So New York and LA will be our two beautiful centers. They are open. People are coming in for labs, coming in for visits. But down the road, there will be real estate for us in the future, but I can't speculate on exactly where yet.
Exciting. Your thoughts on intermittent fasting for women in their reproductive age?
Love it. If you are actively trying to get pregnant, you have a thyroid issue, or you have weird, funky cycles, maybe not for you. Definitely if you're trying to get pregnant, don't be doing any kind of fasting. And if you have the other two things, it may be okay. For what it's worth, I intermittent fast all the time, probably for at least 4 days a week. I love it. And I was actually doing it sort of out of sheer like disorganization and laziness last year when I was trying to get pregnant, got pregnant anyway, but that's not the case for everyone. And so, but this idea that like no one should ever do it if you're a woman in your reproductive years is silly and BS. You do want to make sure that you do, again, back to your testing, like know where your hormones are at. And there's a small number of people for whom intermittent fasting doesn't really work for them and they don't feel good, but I do find it's an effective tool for a lot of people.
Yeah. Your view on birth control pills. I know, again, that's not really a speed round question.
I'm like, where's my can opener?
Sorry, I know. Well, what should people be thinking about and how should people be thinking about it in general?
It's such a personal decision. We do prescribe the pill. I don't love the pill because it depletes a number of sort of core nutrients. And oftentimes it's being used not for birth control, but to cover up somebody's cycle. And so my big thing is if you've been on the pill for a long time, make sure you've got like Parsley's One and Done multi or some other good high quality multi. Make sure you're doing some nutrient repletion. And know that if you're about to go try to get pregnant, I disagree with the sort of party line from the GYN community, which is, oh, just go off the pill tomorrow and like 2 months start trying. Because oftentimes what happens is we uncover the pill masks your cycle. It isn't a real cycle. So oftentimes we unmask things underneath. So the pill isn't the problem, but the PCOS that you didn't know you had, and the endometriosis you didn't know you had, and the funky cycle that is none of the above that you didn't know you had. All of that kind of gets revealed. And I'm like, I always recommend going off the pill at least a year before you want to get pregnant. And doing a check-in. We do a lot of pre-fertility work, pre-fertility optimization. Take care of yourself. Like, let's get this shop in gear to get pregnant so that you have a really great shot at, if you can, at having a natural pregnancy. And if you can't, cool, that's great too. IVF's awesome. But like I see a lot of women who could actually get pregnant on their own naturally, kind of going way too quickly down the fertility services route without sort of asking, hey, what's going on with my body? And could we actually resolve this first, which is, again, self-care. Take care of you, take care of your body. If you are ragged, they are ragged, right? Like just, take care of you before you're then like sort of, okay, something's wrong with me. I'm broken. It's unfixable. I'm going to go do this other thing. Because I think people sometimes assume that unfairly to themselves. But overall, and I love IUDs. I think they're great, but no, like I'm anti-pill or anything like that.
Yeah. So we just have a couple of minutes left, and I do want to address one question that I think is really important. Somebody asked about, whether you have working relationships with insurance companies or any indicators that this kind of holistic preventive care could be covered by insurance companies. And, talk a little bit about that, because I know you're really committed to accessibility and to
Yeah.
high quality healthcare for everyone, not just the few people whose doctors spend more than 10 minutes with them.
Yes. We have a system where insurance unfortunately doesn't reimburse for talking about nutrition or supplements or mental health in your primary care visit or spending more than 15 minutes with you, which is why we have the kind of burn insurance system that we unfortunately have. We've tried to make that accessible. Our membership's all inclusive. So a lot of people don't realize that our $150 a month membership includes all your visits with your doctor, includes all your visits with your health coach throughout the year, and includes unlimited messaging with us between visits, which most doctors won't let you do because they can't bill for that. So, and then you can get reimbursed by insurance today. So we help you submit to your plan and get reimbursed. There is news coming about Parsley working directly with insurance in 21 that I will maybe save for another day, but we are really committed to not only working with insurance companies, but also we collect a lot of outcomes data. And that outcomes data is part of what we're using to show this is a superior and more effective way of managing longitudinal health and chronic illness. Sorry for the healthcare words. And it should be reimbursed at a different rate. The hour that we spend with you addressing all aspects of your life should not be reimbursed at the same rate as a 10-minute visit for a refill for a blood pressure medication. Those two things are not equivalent, but unfortunately right now the system treats them as equivalent, which is why we charge sort of our consumer fee. But we are working on it. There's a lot of good things in the works, so we'll hope to have some announcements later this year on that. For now, you can get reimbursed, like I said, and that's just a clarification. People sometimes think that it's $150 and then we charge for visits. There's no visit charges with us. But more to come, and it's a great question. And we see ourselves on this sort of slow but steady march towards increasing accessibility of holistic medicine year by year, more and more and more.
Well, Robin, I have to say that is such important work that you're doing. I mean, it's really inspiring and incredibly important. I'm on the same page as you. Obviously, holistic preventive care is far superior to just dealing with the car when the wheels have fallen off. And so
you want to join my call with like Aetna in 2 hours? Because if you want to tell them that, I would appreciate it.
I would love to. It makes so much sense, and I think that the fact that you're collecting data, data is king or data is queen. Data is queen. So I just want to honor you for that work you're doing, because I think it's really, really important, not just for the people you're serving, but for everyone else who's in this healthcare system that's not serving them well.
That's the goal. Ultimately, I believe everyone should have access to a holistic medicine doctor. And this year we're working both with insurance and through some other kind of product initiatives at Parsley to take a big step towards that reality. That's the ultimate goal of the company. And we started out with our services the way that we have, and they're awesome. And the most validating and thing that keeps me motivated is just like we get so many patient stories week after week. Someone like figured out my email. It's Robin at Parsley Health, by the way. It's not that hard to figure out, but a couple weeks ago and sent me this note. They had seen one of our other doctors, and she said that like Dr. Link, they're all amazing. Dr. Link's practice is like practically on wait list at this point, but Dr. Link saved my life. Because of our Parsley pregnancy panel, she tested for a set of things after her delivery that her OB/GYN didn't test for. She wouldn't have gotten tested and found like a really important problem. And she sent me this like out of the blue thank you note. And so again, you're just going to hear me like drumbeat this year for all of you, proactive testing. It doesn't have to be Parsley. It can be your regular doctor. The dogs agree.
Yeah.
But go get your testing so you know where you're at.
Amazing. Well, thank you, Robin, so much for your time today, for the work you're doing in the world. And we did paste into the chat. You have generously extended an offer to everyone who's on this call for a discount off of a membership at Parsley. And so I would highly encourage all of you guys to check it out if that's what fits into your life right now. And if it doesn't, please go to the Parsley website, sign up for the newsletter. There's so much free content on there that's really, really good and can be valuable. So thank you for that also. And I just love talking to you today. I really appreciate your time and your work.
Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you for putting together this beautiful community. And it's an honor to kick off this year as my first event and first talk with an amazing group of humans. So everyone, please take care of yourselves, be well, take it easy, no guilt, only love. And if you need us for anything, you know where to find us at Parsley. And again, thank you, Vanessa, for having me today. It's an honor.
Thanks, Robin. Lots of love to you. Appreciate it.
Thanks. Okay, bye. I'm going to go get my dog.